So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being with us. We are here today to just talk a little bit more deeply about co-op services for next school year. I know you've probably received many emails from us about our services, but we wanted to take this opportunity to take a little bit of a deeper dive and share what your schools can expect if they decide to join us in any of these services, and also give you just some examples about how it might look, because some of these services are really designed to be customized to your LEA's needs. So next slide, please. The first one that we're going to talk about are our core support services, and we'll send you this PowerPoint, and they're all hyperlinked to our service description documents. So Megan Alderton.
All right, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome again to our session. I'm going to start with just sharing about our core support services that we are offering this coming school year. Just to go over really quickly, why these particular services. Obviously, I think, we as the co-op and also our members agree that high quality special education programs have to start with a strong foundation. And so our core support services are really our efforts to support our schools in developing strong tier 1 practices. So this is our focus on what we can do in our general education classrooms, in our overall environment, our school culture, that help to boost the success for kids with disabilities. So one of our very exciting tier 1 supports that we offer is Universal Design for Learning. And Universal Design for Learning, we can support our schools in multiple ways. Everything from our free online coursework that we have available to schools. Those are self-paced courses that give our schools a sort of background information on what Universal Design for Learning is. And we go all the way through to how to implement Universal Design for Learning and what that looks like in the classroom setting. Full implementation. We are, I'm sure some of you may have seen or are aware that we have designed what we call demonstration classrooms, and we're always looking to expand those. So full support and full implementation would be the development of a demonstration classroom that focuses on Universal Design for Learning practices. And that is everything from full observations, coaching and support for students, even assistive technology support. And we do all of this with fidelity through the use of a observation tool that we've adopted. So that is sort of the general overview for what is available for Universal Design for Learning.
Megan, can I jump in for 1 second? I just wanted to clarify what we mean by light touch for our schools. Megan kind of gave you the bookends of our spectrum. We know that every school is not ready to build a demonstration classroom, but might be interested in figuring out if UDL practices align with your mission and your curriculum. You want to just kind of get a sense of it before doing a full level commitment. So the light touch, and this is outlined in the one pager, but it's meant to create awareness amongst your administrators and your faculty. So there are 3 full school trainings built in. You can do them throughout the year to kind of acclimate folks to that, maybe create this onboard to eventually full-scale implementation. And then we've also included some consultation with administrators, because what we've found is, as with any new program, if your administrator is not on board and fully committed, these kind of new initiatives don't necessarily work. So we've built in a training on the tool that Megan mentioned, and then 4 walkthroughs so that your administrator could walk through classrooms with our UDL expert and start to get a sense of what it really looks like in practice, what you're looking for, what the components of UDL are. But that's really it. There's not the expectation that everyone's going to be doing it, but following each professional development, we would schedule a walkthrough so that you can start to see if teachers are, some of the strategies are taking root with teachers. And then if they love it, which we all know they will, because it just works well for all students, you could move into the demo model, which the idea is that you would then have some really intensive supports from the co-op for one classroom to really get it to a place where it could serve as an internal professional development model for each for your whole school. So if there are naysayers and people that are skeptical about it working with your kids or your model, you can have it right in your building where you can send them to go watch a colleague do these strategies. And so I think that kind of is a really successful, like, sustainable way of building this. You don't always need an outside expert at that intensive level once you can get your classroom going. Sorry, that was a long interruption. I apologize. Megan, back to you.
No, that's good. So, and I think Julie sort of hit on the outcomes, but overall, again, we are just looking to make sure that we're helping our members develop accessible classrooms for all of our students. And as I stated earlier, and you're going to hear more and more of this throughout, I'm sure you're going to hear it from Megan, who's up next, that the goal is to set a strong foundation upon which second our tier 2 and tier 3 services can live and stand. So next slide.
So, hi everyone. My name is Megan Mulvena. I am the behavior specialist for the co-op. And another feature of the core supports that we're offering is a behavior focus. And so what this is really kind of an overview of what is your tier 1 for behavior supports. In other words, how are you supporting all students, regardless of either a disability need or a manifestation of behavior. So how are we starting off the school year, making sure expectations are clear for the whole community, and how are we positively encouraging students to do what we're expecting them to do instead of kind of shoring up and focusing on what we don't want them to do, which is unfortunately kind of our instinct. So everyone's familiar with the pyramid, and the core supports for behavior are really to help you focus on that bottom part of the pyramid, as Megan mentioned, around foundation. And we find that once you have a very strong foundation for this, then your other levels of need become smoother in terms of how to approach. I think we can go to the next slide. So we talk a lot about school culture, and I always think this sort of reverse pyramid is powerful, because if we're not building our culture on what we call the science of behavior, our pyramid starts looking like this, right? So we're doing a little bit of focus at the foundational level in terms of expectations of the positive and acknowledgements of the positive, and then we're doing a lot of putting out fires. And what that ends up doing is really tipping the scale in terms of which students are getting our attention and why. Very powerful. I had a student a number of years ago, I was interviewing for an FBA, and one of the questions I always ask students in the student interview is, well, what's one thing you could do different in this school? And he kept thinking and thinking, and usually they'll say extra recess or something. Finally, he said to me, I don't think it's fair that I get all these breaks for doing the wrong thing, and there's all these kids that do the right thing and they don't get anything. And I went, wow, that's interesting. And so what he was describing is there was like a reverse of really what we're aiming for when we talk about school culture. And so the second image is really just to bring to mind for all of us that our behavior, when we say science of behavior, we're talking about how intricate our own behavior is connected to environment. And when we look at really our own, how that affects ourselves. And I think in this past year, we've seen such obvious examples of that because our physical environments have changed, and therefore how we do things has changed. So to really be conscious that these are all the pieces we're getting from a physical environment all the time. We're getting information and resources and models and feedback and motivation. And when we start talking about science of behavior and building our culture, our school's culture around that, we're being really cognizant that all those pieces of the environment are what's informing what students do every day. So I think that's really what the focus is when we talk about core supports and we talk about behavior. It's how to help school really plan at that foundational level. And we do that when we talk about science of behavior. We do that as a school-wide PD. We'll do that sort of in doing a survey with key leaders from the school and talk about what's everybody's vision. And is what you're doing, your actions and your language in line with your vision around student behavior? So here are just a few gold standard aspects of what we call school-wide positive behavior support. And our goal would really be to help you do these pieces, or at least some of them. Some of them you may be doing, some of them you might have more of an interest or a need to do. And we would really work with you to figure out which ones are greatest priority and how can we support you in the journey. And the outcomes would really be that, that the whole school team is better equipped to be proactive around behavior. And so again, we're not waiting for students to manifest challenging behavior before we respond or call us for help. And that all staff will be better prepared to stay ahead of those challenging behavior. And that certainly we would look at data to observe our systemic trends and inform decision-making when we talk about supporting students.
Great, thanks, Megan. And I think that is no, next slide is fine. I think that's a good lead in to the need for MTSS support. So this is our tier 2 and 3. That's the way we've chosen to delineate here. I think we can make certain assumptions about what to expect in the fall. I know many of you are doing hybrid and are starting to see how students are entering the building again. And I'm looking at Megan because I know that she's shared some national trend anecdotal data that students are coming back into buildings and they're not having as many behavioral challenges because they're maybe so happy to be back and having that structure and engagement. But when I kind of think back into my archive about how behavior works, and Megan, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, that there can be like a honeymoon period, right? And so I think I'm thinking that, this hybrid period could be a honeymoon as you're starting back to school in September. There could be a honeymoon. But as Megan likes to say, like, now is the right time to reset things that maybe weren't working last or 2 school years ago, whenever in the before times that, you had challenges around either behaviors or just struggling students in general. And so that's why we felt like it was really important to, in addition to those core supports, which offer you an opportunity to reset, is to either reset or strengthen your MTSS supports. We feel like it's so important because we don't exactly know how kids are going to present when they come back full time in the fall. There could be behavior challenges, there could be academic challenges, most certainly, that if schools have a really well thought out and trained process, it's going to make everything much easier for the adults in the building and also for our students. So this service is kind of comes from this service that we piloted this year with 5 LEAs. We're just ending it up now. It was pretty successful. We learned a lot, but we felt very strongly that we wanted to offer an extension and some like personalized support around the free resources that we have for all members, which include an MTSS manual, an online course through our Teachable School, and also a progress tracker for intervention. So those are all part of your membership. You should definitely use them. We'll probably do a little bit more training around them as we get started so that you feel like they're accessible. But if you feel like your school really needs some extra help, some thought partnership, and putting some structure just to make sure this really takes root, this service is for you. And what I like about it is we really, there are some things that are going to go for all of the participants, but we start with a diagnostic so that our project leader can really get a sense of where your school is and where you want to go. Then we're going to offer some boot camp training just to get your teams on the same page, working in the same direction, having an action plan for the year, because we know there are going to be so many moving parts. And then there'll be a COP and some coaching so that we can keep it customized and really relevant for everyone that participates. And Megan, I think Megan will be participating in that from the behavioral side. If you'd like to share anything else, that would be great.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah. So from the behavioral side, again, just as what Julie explained, sort of an overall look at all tiers of support. And then we also have an additional add-on feature to this package around FBA capacity. And so something that I'm personally very passionate about is making sure that systems know that they can too understand human behavior. And that's not sort of, although there's some of us that are a little more versed in it and have studied it very deeply, it's accessible. It's knowledge that's accessible to all. And I think if schools really felt confident in building some more capacity to do that, even if it's with my support, that it will have a ripple effect, because you're going to have a better understanding of the entire process. Even if you're not the one that's maybe analyzing for function, you'll be really getting very well versed at what it's like to interview and what it's like to sort of pull pieces of data together from as much of an objective view as you can. And so that is really, we spent a lot of time last summer building out an online course on conducting FBAs. It's a 6-part course, takes about 3 hours to complete. There's quizzes after each section. And it's really meant to kind of give you the overview. I mean, people have said, so after I complete that, can I do an FBA? And I say, I think so. It might be nice to get, a second set of eyes on it initially, but you will have the tools to be able to do that. And so if you're interested, you would take that course. That's free of charge. That comes with your membership. And then the package for that part would be consulting with me. So I would actually do some co-conducting of FBAs with you. And so we would customize what that looks like, but I'd really be kind of coaching you and your team at the school to do them yourself and not have to outsource that piece maybe as much, or for some students.
Fantastic. Thank you, Megan. And that FBA add-on is part of that program description or service description doc. So you'll find all the details in the doc. Thanks for dropping the link, Monica. They're all in there. So we'll move on to our intervention district.
All right. So in the vein of thinking more about tier 2 and tier 3, if needed, we have developed an intervention district, and this district has been developed to support our students who we know, based on the data, need some additional instruction and specific skills. We're focused on closing achievement gaps for students with disabilities. And this really is, we consider, a strategic investment in evidence-based intervention programming. So this intervention district is based on a really robust partnership that we've developed over time with Hutton Mifflin, and it allows our member schools to access their high quality interventions. Right now, we've been focused on using Read 180, which includes System 44. Read 180 is more of the comprehension element of reading instruction. System 44 is more the phonemic awareness decoding component of reading instruction. And again, Math 180, which really looks at basically, I'll step back a little bit. Part of this process will be data collection. So these programs are really built to be able to effectively support students who we know are at least 2 grade levels below where they're expected to be. So our intervention district builds in training, it builds in coaching, and it builds in administrative support. And this is at a discounted rate, which is really nice. If anyone knows, these interventions are usually fairly expensive. And so if you join our district, this really does decrease the cost significantly. We would host the web-based platform. We would manage the licenses and materials. And member schools would then purchase the books and libraries that go along with teaching the courses. Member schools also have to create their rosters, but we would provide support with even selecting students and developing those rosters if you need that support. One of the good things in working with Hutton Mifflin that we've found is that they have data experts who are ready and willing to look at whatever data you have available, including NWA MAP. I'm trying to think of some others. iReady. Those are just a few. But any of your progress monitoring tools that you already use are absolutely available for them to look at, and they can help you make decisions on how many students need what type of programming. Let's see, our partner schools, definitely you'll have access to 2-day getting started training. Again, this cost is decreased because we would be pooling the resources of all of those who join the intervention district. And you would also have the support of meeting with us at least quarterly. We would sit with you to review data, make recommendations, and do whatever we can to help you improve your program implementation. So next slide, please. All right, so we've got this sort of set up for everyone to think about in 2 different ways. The first is there are some folks, and just to highlight, right now, why is this a really good time to do this? Well, we've had obviously a year of learning that has been disrupted. And so again, taking that opportunity to rethink how we've done things in the past and move forward with how we really need to be continuing to do things in the future. Those who are thinking about ESY services or thinking about summer recovery, summer implementation will require us to receive your data. That could be MAP again, ANET, iReady. We would like to have that no later than June 4th. This would allow us also to then receive rosters from you all so that we would know the number of licenses needed, the number of teacher licenses needed, and we can facilitate the purchase of materials. We really must have any participating staff who are selected to attend the 2-day getting started training. The June dates, I'm actually currently working on what those dates will be. So stay tuned. Those are, I'm literally just finalizing those at the moment. But expect 2 days of training for teachers in June so they can implement July through August. Fall implementation might be a little less rushed, a little less pressure for some. However, we would want all data sent to us by June 30th. That way we can work at looking at the data, assist again with selecting students so that we know the number of students needed, the materials needed for which programs, teacher licenses, etc. And finally, we have getting started training already scheduled for the week of August 9th and the week of August 16th. We're going to have a math training available and reading training available for both of those weeks. So schools who participate would be able to select and choose which sessions they would like to attend. Finally, implementation we would expect would start in September, and we would be supporting you throughout with coaching, the quarterly meetings, and just whatever support we need to keep the program running smoothly and getting the outcomes that we need from our kiddos. Next slide. So in terms of outcomes, obviously we want to see that, students who are participating actually meet their expected growth targets in reading and math. One of the things that the program allows you to do initially is you test students using the reading inventory, phonics inventory, and/or math inventory, and your expected growth targets are set for students right away. And so that really gives you a good foundation to know what you're working toward and being able to measure that progress throughout the year. And obviously, we really want to build schools' capacities to implement evidence-based interventions with fidelity. And that, if that means helping you figure out how you need to schedule things, that is a level of support that we will absolutely provide. So I think that covers it. Unless there are questions, we can move
No
to
questions in the chat, but we invite everyone to throw questions in there if you have them. Let's turn it over to Amita to share our last service.
Sure. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amita, and I will be talking about special education leadership coaching. One of the things that I think many of you know is we value the leadership and expertise of special educators. And so we wanted to provide some service opportunity to this group of folks who make up a large portion of leaders in our city who need the development that they don't always receive. And so we really think that leaders that are developed make great impact on student achievement. And so that's one of the big things that we really want to focus on. And it, of course, like in doing this work, we really want to increase retention in our special ed leaders and ensure that they feel like they are valued members of a leadership team. So the service itself is going to be comprised of monthly cohort sessions where we come together as a group, however many leaders we have sign up for this service, to focus on the skills listed here on this slide around program visioning, staff development, literacy around data, strategic thinking, and collaboration with stakeholders, especially as it relates to collaborating with our general education partners. And so in those monthly opportunities, we'll talk about these topics, but then that'll also build upon itself through the individual coaching process. And those sessions will happen bi-monthly, individually with yours truly. And so that'll be an opportunity for us as coach and coachee, mentee, however you'd like to frame it, to set goals around what we want to achieve in the program. And one of the, I think, the nice things about this service is that it's not just the coach's perspective or the coachee's perspective, rather, that's involved in crafting this plan for development. I also would be meeting with the school leader to really get a sense of the individual's growth areas and strengths, and almost create a triangle of support around this individual's development. And so it's, I think, a really neat opportunity for our special ed leaders to get guidance from someone like myself who has been in that position very recently and really understands the demands of the role, but also will help build leadership skills in our special ed leaders so they are focused on quality and not compliance all the time. And then our outcomes for this service are that the leader will take an active role in the organization, that the program visioning is centered around student outcomes and development, and that their data literacy skills will increase in service of student achievement. Any questions about that?
I don't see any questions in the chat, and I would just add that we were very careful as we developed this to make it coaching instead of professional development, because we really feel like folks who are in the leadership position often really have the ability, have the answers, but don't necessarily have the time or support from colleagues within buildings. And so we wanted to create that time and support to allow leaders to focus on higher level tasks. And sometimes you have to schedule it, or you have to, I know at least for me, it's super helpful for me to talk with someone about what I'm thinking, as opposed to working in a silo. And for many special ed leaders, you're the very top in terms of expertise in your LEA, and there isn't someone who has your level of expertise who you can partner with. And so we felt like it was really important to provide some structured partnership around some of this higher level thinking. So I just wanted to clarify that this service is really comes from a place of wanting to partner with LEA leaders to, as Amita said, in benefit or in service of all of our students. So with that being said, I will go to the next slide, please. Thank you so much for being with us. The chat has been quiet, so hopefully that means we're doing a good job explaining. But I did want to just share the link to my calendar. So if you have any questions about any of the specific services, or really thinking through which services might be a good match for your LEA, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Please share this deck and also recording once you get them with your colleagues at the leadership level. We're happy to talk to anyone on the leadership team. We've been having conversations with principals, with school leaders, with SPED directors. It really, I think every school handles this type of thing differently, but we're honestly ready and willing to talk to everyone because I think it can feel a little bit overwhelming. There's a lot to choose from, and many of the schools that we've spoken to say, like, we think we want everything, but we know we maybe don't have the capacity to do everything. So we can kind of talk through and strategize around that with you. And with that being said, thank you so much for being with us.